Well, everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get to learn a little bit more about somebody else's perspective on movies. And I have film reviewer Jackie Cooper here with me today. Jackie, thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, it's a pleasure. It's all mine. I'm glad I've stumbled onto this wasteland.
There you go. Which I know I've connected with you through Instagram through Kristen, who's a friend of mine. I
Yes,
know you've talked movies with. We're a couple of New Jersey folks, so you know it's a
I,
big
I
but
do.
small Instagram community. So
I do the Oscar show with Kristen. We've done that maybe
mhm.
3 or 4 years. I can't remember how many, but she and Mac, it is always fun to
Mhm.
get out there and stick your neck out and make predictions, that type thing.
It's a lot of fun, Oscar season. But before we jump into the questions, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit, shamelessly plug where people can check out your reviews and
Well,
everything.
it's I'm 110 years old. It's this is, I never dreamed at my age, I'm in my 80s, that I would be doing movie reviews. But about 3, 4 years ago, I was posting my reviews, just entertainment rundowns, 2 or 3 minute reviews of movies. I had 136 followers. I was
Mhm.
so proud of that. I didn't know what to do. I thought, gosh, 136 followers. And one Friday night in March, 4 years ago, my son came over and said, turn on your computer and go to your website, YouTube. And I did, and everything was just scrawling like mad, like an odometer, and I was up to 3,000 subscribers. And my son said, at this point, Dad, by tomorrow, you'll have 10,000. Well, by the next morning, I had 25,000. And by the next morning, I had 56,000. And
Oh
it kept
my.
going, Shane. Believe me or not, it kept going to 150,000 plus. And I didn't know what had happened, but I found out later that a 16-year-old kid from Boston, Massachusetts, had been going through YouTube and saw this old man doing movie reviews, and I only had 136 subscribers. And he thought he liked what he heard. And so he gave a shout out to subreddit, and who gave me a shout
Mm.
out to Reddit, who gave me a shout out to PewDiePie, which I didn't know who PewDiePie was, but he's got like 9 zillion subscribers. And he gave me a shout out, and that took it up to 150,000. Now, you talk about a wild story.
That
That is,
certainly is a wild story.
you never know in this life what's going to happen. I mean,
Mhm.
I never dreamed that, and it's leveled off. It's up, still over 100,000, uh, but it's just amazing.
That is amazing. And, sometimes it just takes one person appreciating
Yes.
what you're doing to just blow up. And that's very exciting. And I'm glad that I get a chance to talk some movies with you today.
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, then let's get started with everybody's favorite question for sure. What's your favorite film?
Isn't that the most complex question in the world, though? I've got two sons, and it'd be like saying,
Mhm.
which one of your sons is your favorite? Uh, but I I went through, I've given different answers on this, but
Yep.
I'm in a very mellow mood, and one of my favorite all-time movies, is called The Way We Were. I don't even know if you're familiar with it, with Robert Redford and Barbara Streisand. It's a
Mhm.
complicated love story, and just my wife and I love the movie together.
Mhm.
And we always say now, if we're on a quiz show, then somebody asks, what's your favorite movie? This is what you always say.
There
So
you
for
go.
today, it's The Way We Were.
I'll have to check that one out. I don't think I've seen that one, but
Well,
Robert
you're a
Redford's
lot
certainly
younger than
great.
I
So
am.
I do my best to. I'm known among most of my friends as the one that watches a lot of movies. So I'll certainly add it to my watch list to check out. But certainly Robert Redford's a fantastic actor.
Well, the combination is good chemistry between he and
Mhm,
Streisand. The story is takes place in I think the 40s and 50s, and it's just well done all the way around. But it's so funny. I have an Instagram page, and I have a
mhm,
young woman who works with me, and we do the Instagram stuff. And she's 24 years old. 20, I think
mhm.
she's turned 25. And you reach a point like in the 2000s even, and you go beyond that, and it's like, no. Like if I were to say Robert Redford to her, it would be, who's he? I asked her one time about Marlon Brando, and she was just completely lost. Didn't know what I was
Sad.
talking about. Yeah,
It's always an interesting thing because I work at a college and I like to tell myself I'm not that much older than the students anymore, but now that I'm like almost 15 years older than the freshmen, it's just a whole entire different thing. It's just even talking about things that I watched growing up, and I grew up in a household with my mom and my grandparents. So I
mhm.
used to watch a lot of old movies with my grandparents, and they would a lot of students would not know. And the fun thing is, whenever I do icebreakers, I ask people what their favorite movie is. And it's always interesting to hear what people say. A lot of college boys like to say Pulp Fiction. A lot of them, which has
Yeah.
been pretty common for a while now. But no, it's
Well,
always a very
see,
interesting thing.
for my generation,
Hmm.
you would it would be Rosebud or Citizen Kane, excuse me.
Yep.
You know, which I never liked that movie. Never. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not. Orson
Yes.
Welles, supposedly a classic, but I never liked the movie. But my friends, I would say, "What's your favorite movie?" Oh, Citizen Kane, and then they would expect you to tell them how intelligent they were and how wonderful they were.
Those are film students right there. They're like,
Yes,
gotta say the right answer. There is no right answer. You love what movies you love.
all personal choice. That's right.
There you go. But Jackie, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
I remember I grew up in South Carolina, small town, Clinton, South
Hmm.
Carolina. There was a little town, maybe 5 or 6 miles away from us, called Joanna,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, and it had a movie theater. And my first recollection is my mother taking my brother and myself to see a movie called The Greatest Show on Earth. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or whatever.
Yes,
Charlton
Charlton Heston.
Heston,
Yep.
Eddie Hutton, Cornell Wilde, Jimmy Stewart was in it. It was about Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey
Hmm.
Circus. I think it still shows on TNT or whatever it is.
Hmm.
But that is my first, and I must have been 6, 7 years old. But I remember the experience. And
Hmm.
my mother loved movies. I love movies. And I lived in a town. This is going to be completely alien to you, Shane, but we when we got a theater finally in Clinton, we had one movie on Monday and Tuesday, another movie on Wednesday,
Hmm.
another movie on Thursday and Friday, and then another movie on Saturday, and then Sunday was closed. But it wasn't like you had triple screens. You just had four movies in a week.
Yep.
And we would go, and it was just fantastic.
It's funny because I remember seeing The Fablemans and the opening scene of young Sammy Fableman watching the greatest show on
That's
earth.
absolutely right. I had forgotten
Mhm.
that. When I went to see the Fablemans, I was
Yeah,
like, we share that in common.
there you
Yeah.
go. I I'm a huge Charlton Heston fan. I have been since I was a kid when I used to watch the Ten Commandments and Ben Hur a lot, at least once a year because like Easter and stuff like that. And Charlton, like I've seen plenty of Charlton Heston films, and The Greatest
Planet of
Show
the
on Earth
Apes.
was. Oh, I'm a humongous Planet of the Apes fan.
That was
Um,
the original.
Absolutely. And what's very interesting is my first recollection of going to see a movie was my hometown did have a movie theater and it was also a one screen theater. And it's certainly not like that anymore. I have like five AMC's within like 30 minutes of my house. Um, but I remember going to a one screen theater, and that was how it was. And obviously, movies have changed dramatically in the past 30 years since that was. But it's it's an old feeling. I like going to old theaters where it's just like we have like one or two screens and we show like we have two movies running this whole entire week. And, kind of feels special being able to have that kind of experience. And usually they're kept up nicer out of the big movie theaters. So,
Well, I remember even from South Carolina going to Atlanta. We
mhm,
went. I wasn't around when Gone with the Wind first came out, but one of the times of its reissue, it came back to Lowe's Grand Theater in
yep.
Atlanta. My mother again took us, and we drove all the way to Atlanta just to see it in the theater where it had premiered. And I mean, these are not just movie houses; these are grand, buildings that
Mhm.
encompass a theater. And so that was a treat for us.
I would love to go out to LA and see some of those like big classic theaters that they have and stuff like that. It's a bucket list thing. But Jackie, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
I like legal thrillers. You
Okay.
know, the, all the I was an attorney for many years,
Mhm.
and I remember seeing A Few Good Men. And
Yep.
at the time that movie came out, I was uh, working a lawyer. I was the JAG for the Air Force, and I really identified with Tom
Mhm.
Cruise and the whole
Mhm.
thing. Anything by Grisham, any of his legal thriller
Yep.
books, A Time to Kill, Rainmaker, whatever, The Firm, those are all, scattered out in my list of favorite movies. Uh, but after that, I love uh, romantic
Mhm.
dramas, etc. Like musicals, the whole thing. I love the movies. Love the movies.
I agree, but legal thrillers are a special kind of film too, and it's like you get all those very specific beats that you want out of it. And I've read a lot of John Grisham novels. I've always been a big reader, and I remember having a business law class in high school and watched A Time to Kill, and that one has stuck with me for a while. And I'm a huge fan of The Firm. Love that. That's one of those kinds of movies where it's like Tom Cruise is just an action star. It's like, no, there's other things, like he's done other things. And The Firm's definitely one of those ones I like to
Yes,
go back to and watch of his.
A Few
Now,
Good Men showed that Tom Cruise not
yeah,
just an action star.
absolutely. And Jack Nicholson can show up for a handful of scenes and steal a movie because it's Jack Nicholson. And
Absolutely, in his prime.
mhm. Well, and that combination of like Rob Reiner had like a string of 8 movies where he was one of the greatest filmmakers working, and just Sorkin writing is something special. So
Anything by Sorkin is just amazing to me.
mhm. It's just like I wish that I could fight like that man, which and
Oh,
like it doesn't always sound the most natural, but it's something that like you can't not be engaged listening to. It just draws you in so perfectly.
yes, yes. All those TV series that he did were just
Mhm.
fantastic.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of some filmmakers, who is your favorite filmmaker?
You know, again, if you didn't say they had to be living or dead. So I was thinking Hitchcock,
Yep.
Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho, The Birds, Rear
Hmm.
Window, Vertigo. My gosh, I used to just wait for the next Alfred Hitchcock movie to come out. And he always entertained and always made a cameo in his movies. I don't know if
Yep.
you're, I
Hmm.
love that. You'd see somebody walking on the street, you think, oh, that's Alfred Hitchcock.
Him
So,
going on to him walking onto a bus or walking off a bus,
yeah,
walking down the
yeah.
street.
But those movies have held up to me. I mean,
Mhm.
Psycho still gives me chills when I watch the original, the second. version was not that my favorite. But Vertigo and Rear Window, all those are movies I've watched over and over, and they hold up.
I remember watching The Lady Vanishes earlier this year and just being amazed by the fact that like this is filmed from like not mistaken late 30s, early 40s
Yes,
and
yes.
how modern it looks. And it's just like Alfred Hitchcock could show up in 2024 and still direct the hell out of a movie and still shock people. He was just that good at creating film. And Vertigo is one of my favorite films. I got to see that back in I forget it was 2018 or 2019, but I saw it for like I think it was like its 70th anniversary in a theater. And that was such a cool experience getting to see that on the big screen.
Oh yeah, yes. And the camera work. I don't know who his cinematographer was per
Yeah.
se, but camera work in those films. When Kim Novak is in the tower and
Yep.
things happen, the camera work is phenomenal.
And that ingenious idea for the vertigo effect of moving and zooming in and out the camera at the same time and just having that strange distortion of things. I'm afraid of heights too. I remember watching Vertigo for the first time. I'm like, no, I'm good. And
Mhm.
seeing
Yeah.
that like first shot where it did that, I'm just like, that's way too realistic. I don't like this, but it's so effective. So always really impressive. Now, thinking about in front of the camera, who are some of your favorite actors and actresses?
Well, I was, this really got me thinking. Uh, One of my favorite actresses is Julia Roberts.
Mhm,
I think she's underrated. I think she's much better than a lot of the material she's been given. Plus, she's from Georgia, where I live. I've interviewed her 6 times, I think, and you know, she. I love what she projects on film. I loved her in Erin Brockovich. I thought that was a
mhm,
well-deserved Oscar. It was kind of out of her lane playing that.
mhm,
Then one of the first times I got introduced to her was Still Magnolias, I think, where she
mhm.
played the tragic heroine in
Yeah.
that. And it, I went to, she made a movie called Sleeping with the Enemy. I don't know if you remember that one or not, but I went out. I had interviewed her in Georgia a couple of times, and then I went out to California, and it was at the Four Seasons or some huge hotel like
Mhm,
that in the ballroom. And all the press was on one side of the ballroom. And then there was a wide expanse, and then there was the door, and the door opens, and here comes Julia Roberts. And she came all across the ballroom and stopped in front of me and said, "What are you doing here? You ought to be in Georgia." And it was like, she knows me, she knows me, she knows me.
that's fantastic.
Just a very gracious thing for her to do. And
Mhm.
it was very impressive to me. And
Yeah,
and
oh, go ahead.
I her last movie with George Clooney, whatever that thing was about.
What, Ticket to Paradise?
Broadway. Yeah, yes,
Yeah.
it's just such a disappointment to me. It didn't resonate at all, and I thought, Julia, you still got your touch. Come on, let's not waste it on this.
Yeah. It's one of those things where certainly a lot of people don't give her enough credit for how talented an actress she is, but like just the amount of charisma that she has, and you can't teach that. That's natural. And
She has the greatest laugh in Hollywood.
yep.
When she laughs, it just illuminates everything.
And like I was literally just rewatching Ocean's 11 the other day,
Hmm.
and she doesn't have the meatiest of roles
No,
in that film at all. But you have
she's
Julia
girlfriend.
Roberts, yeah, and she makes it, and she makes it work. Like Tess is not the most dynamic of characters. They don't give her a whole lot of screen time or a whole lot to do. But like you care because it's Julia Roberts, and just having her at that point with between like Andy Garcia and George Clooney and Brad Pitt, it's just like this is a very charismatic actor that just fills that screen. Also, that movie has an insane amount of charismatic people in it. That's
Yeah,
part of the charm. But yeah, Julia Roberts is fantastic, and it's always nice seeing her still popping up in some stuff. I think it was
it's
like that Ben is back that came out a little bit before COVID. I
yes, I
remember
remember
that, and
that.
like that hit. Like that had a lot of emotion to it. And that was definitely one of those movies where it's just like, well, this is not a feel good movie because we're navigating through it, but she's so good in it.
But my favorite actor
Hmm.
is Bruce Willis,
Hmm.
and it's so sad. We talk about Julia still got it, but it's so sad his
Yeah.
situation where he's being diminished health wise. And boy, I remember every Bruce Willis movie that came out, there was something special about it just because
Hmm.
Willis was in it. And Die Hard is one of my all time favorites.
Yep.
Just thought he was terrific in that, and the whole series of moonlighting that he did with Sybil Shepherd, and
Hmm.
then every movie since then. I love Reds. I don't know if you remember that. I think it was him and Helen Mirren were in Reds.
Oh, yeah. Retired and
Retired
extremely
CAI.
dangerous.
Yes, yes, yes. But
And like that.
he still had it then. I hate now that there are all these movies that you can. It's almost like they just kind of propped him up and gave him a line, and then they'll
Yeah.
advertise it as starring Bruce Willis or whatever.
Yeah, he was probably putting out like four straight to VOD action movies a
Yeah,
year just because like they could throw him in the movie and at least put his face on the poster and stuff like that. And it
mhm,
was a shame because
absolutely.
like even back in the early to mid early 2010s with films like Looper and even like Moonrise Kingdom, like he was still doing some really good work in
Yeah,
those films.
yeah.
And it's such a shame that things took such a turn real quick. But like Die Hard is like the perfect action movie, and he is the perfect action star because he's just in every guy. He's just a cop. He's not like Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone, who you can tell are like made to look like killing machines. And he's just so insanely charismatic, and every line is just so good. And he had plenty of roles where he gave fantastic performance, like something like The Sixth Sense seems like so odd for Bruce
Yes.
Willis to pop up in, but he was so good in it. And it is a shame seeing because like I've seen a lot of those movies in the past couple of years
I have
where
too.
and like on some level it kind of makes me feel better that there was something going on there and it wasn't just him just oh I'm getting paid and just showing up. But then it also makes you feel really bad about like they were really taking advantage of the situation here and just milking his name for years at this point. But oh no, the two of them are some of the most charismatic and best actors of the past 30 years. So, um, now Jackie, do you have a particular film that you feel like you just watch every day?
Yes. Ah, this is strange, but I have a copy of it. I can watch it
Mhm.
if I want to, but it's when I'm turning through the channels or whatever, and Love Actually comes up.
Mhm.
I love that movie. To see Hugh Grant do his little dance, the little girl singing at the end about
Yeah.
all I want for Christmas is you, and the little boy on the drums is so crazy in love with her. Every aspect, you know, of the love stories that are connected just seems to succeed. And I cannot let that movie go by without stopping and watching it.
Oh, just the huge. I think my favorite storyline from that's actually Bill Nye's
Oh, what he's
storyline.
great.
It's so funny. Him trying to sing the Christmas version of his song to start the movie is so great. And he's one of my favorite actors that I don't feel like gets enough attention. And he just can just brings so much personality to stuff, and it's hilarious seeing him play like an quote unquote over the hill rock star that does not care. And like the way he talks on air on that television show is hilarious. It's
And
definitely one of those.
and the whole relationship with his manager,
Yeah,
rather than the wild night out, he'd rather just spend the night, not the night, but be with his friend,
yeah.
who is so much so. And that's another part of that uh, relationship. And of course, the Laura Linney taking care of her brother who has
Mm,
challenges, and she gets a chance to date the hot guy from the office or
yeah.
whatever, and then it all just falls apart. Oh my gosh. Emma Thompson is so great in that.
Oh, she
Colin
tears my
Firth.
heart out
Oh,
every time I watch that movie.
Johnny Mitchell. I've looked at life from both sides now. Oh, nope. I can't let that movie go by without tuning in.
Mhm. Yeah, and I feel like Alan Rickman's worse in that movie than any villain he's played in any movie where it's just like, how could you do this to Emma Thompson?
Yep.
But
Yep.
but no, Love Actually is definitely one of those kinds of movies that's just endlessly entertaining and watchable. Now, Jackie, what's a film that connects with you closely because it relates to another interest of yours?
Well, I think I mentioned the one is, A Few Good Men,
Yep,
because we were at the same situation in our lives. I was handling Air Force
yep,
court martials and trials, and I saw Tom Cruise doing the same thing, and I thought, I may make this a career. I didn't, but I thought about it just because I connected so with that character.
absolutely. And I have that kind of feeling too when I see like anything with like teaching and like the classroom, especially college. Um, my college is a lot more low key than a lot of the colleges that you see in movies. It certainly is not a party school, but being able to have that
What about the
connection.
holdovers? Did you relate to the holdovers?
Oh my God, I love that movie to
I
pieces.
did too.
That hit in a special place, and I'm like, I would like to think that I'm not the grumpy, hard ass teacher that Paul Giamatti is in the movie. But like just watching that was a special movie, and that's one movie that I feel like I can see myself watching around the holidays every year. And we don't always get movies that like immediately click like that, where it's just like now I'm gonna connect this with this time of year every year. But no, the holdovers was certainly something special.
I was pulling for that for the best picture. As great as Oppenheimer was,
Mhm.
but holdovers, it was just hit a special place in my heart, and it was a great movie.
I
And I
remember
think
walking it.
also that Paul Giamatti is one of the most talented actors anywhere.
Mhm. I remember walking out of Oppenheimer and thinking Cillian Murphy's winning that Oscar, and then walking out of the holdovers and being like, "But I kind of want Giamatti to win the Oscar." Because he was so fantastic in that. He is certainly one of those actors that doesn't get enough credit, and he's so committed to every performance that he has. I can't recall a role that he completely looked like he was phoning it in. Even like the weirdest, wildest
No,
things,
never.
like them putting him as a rhino in a giant mech suit in a silly Spider-Man movie. And I'm just like, Paul Giamatti went there. He was committed.
Was committed to it. But I remember coming out of Oppenheimer thinking Cillian Murphy was put on this earth to play this role. It's like he's just been waiting his time,
Yep.
doing the stuff. But this was the role he was meant to play. And I can't
He he
imagine anybody else doing it.
he had been sitting around doing all those Christopher Nolan movies, knowing one day Chris is going to put me in a starring role in one of these movies, and he did, and it
And he
paid off,
did. Yeah.
and it all clicked. Now, Jackie, who's a movie character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
Uh, I had two. The
Hmm.
first is Atticus Finch, Gregory
Hmm.
Peck Trail. Again, because of the law,
Yep.
I would think I was a law student when I saw To Kill a Mockingbird, maybe a little bit older, but I remember thinking, that's everything I want to be. I want to be that good a person. I want to be
Yep.
that good a parent. I want to be that good at seeing things equally. There was just so many attributes that he had that I connected with, and it was fantastic.
Hmm.
But I also, this has been because recently I got a new pair of glasses that were
Uh-huh.
these, and somebody came up to me and said, "You look and act just like that guy from Up, the cartoon, Carl. Remember
Carl
Carl?
Fredricksen.
He put balloons on his house and flew off." So I went back and looked at him and I thought, well, it's a cross between Carl and Mr. Magoo, and I can connect with.
I can see that, but you certainly don't have the disposition like Mr. Fredricksen, because like he is a grump
He is
at
a
that
grunt,
point at that point in the movie. But
but
no, I
but he had a tender heart.
he
It's
certainly did. And Ed Asner is so good
wasn't he good?
as so good. But no, it's hard to go wrong with Atticus Finch. He's one of the greatest movie heroes ever.
Whew.
So it was certainly a wonderful person to be able to connect with in that way. Now, what's a film that you love that you feel like would surprise people?
I hate Wes Anderson movies.
Okay.
He does not hit me. I'm not gonna say never, but all of his main movies just
Hmm.
I can't lock into the humor. I cannot do it.
Hmm.
Except I love the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Hmm.
Everything in that movie hit me right. So I've been always saying, I don't like any Wes Anderson movies, but when Grand Budapest came out, I always have to make that the exception that I
Hmm.
pull. And I'm not good with comedy. I'm not a good responder to comedy. Uh,
Hmm.
it's you have to do a lot to make me laugh and earn my respect with comedy. But that Grand Budapest Hotel, every character in there, and why it hit me so right, I don't know, but it did. Maybe it was the time, the place, I don't know. But I've watched it since, and it still entertains me. But then I went to see what was the one about the little town in the middle of the desert?
Asteroid City.
Yes,
Yeah,
good for me. Nope, I tried again.
it's I'm a huge Wes Anderson fan, and
See, there we
I feel like there's only huge Wes Anderson fans and people who hate Wes Anderson
it's extreme.
because he's extreme. His style of filmmaking is so specific that if you're not cued into that frequency, you're just like, what the hell is this? And
French Dispatch. I was
yeah,
like, what? What? This is entertainment? No.
one of my closest friends hates Wes Anderson. And she's my wife's best friend. She's just like, don't you dare put that on. Like I'm not watching this.
I am
And
not wasting hours of my life watching that.
yeah, but Grand Budapest Hotel is one of my favorite films, and there is something that feels so perfect about it. And I feel like, for me personally, I don't know if he can make a movie better than that, to be honest.
That's fun.
And The French Dispatch and Asteroid City have certainly veered even more into his sensibilities and very abstract with things. I think the Grand Budapest Hotel was like a perfect storm of it was genre bending. You had this like murder mystery, silly comedy, like war torn
But it was
drama.
layered. That
Yep.
movie was layered, and each layer worked. That was what
Mhm.
got me. Each layer, you would go from one extreme to the next extreme to the next extreme to the next extreme, and each one worked.
And I don't think I've seen Ray Fiennes funnier or like I just absolutely love him as Gustav H in that film. And I was a little disappointed that he didn't get recognition for that. And I'm like,
But he
it's
did.
probably just too weird of a silly of a role because I wish that he got at least nominated for Best Actor because I feel like he really would have deserved it because he took that movie and he knew the tone and he ran with it
He set the tone.
100%. And F. Murray Abraham narrating most of it and him saying, "Well, we were happy together, at least for a little while."
And
And
you had
like,
me laughing even there.
yeah,
And
and
I'm
it
not,
it hits. It I rewatched it recently, and that line, he said that line, I'm just like, don't you make me tear up watching this movie? And it just hits in a very specific kind of way. But I think this is a nice segue into my last question is what do you love most about movies?
you know, like I said, I'm very up in age.
Mm.
What a glorious ride it's been to see the changes, in cinema. Always escapism.
Hmm.
You can have your worst day and go to a good movie and you're going to feel better.
Yeah.
Uh, seeing the growth of talent over the years, uh, seeing things that you can only imagine actually shown on film, and it's just this has been applied. It's magical. It is
Yeah.
absolutely magical, and that's what draws me to it, and has all my life. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, it's I see I review 5 movies a week, and people say, "Where do you find 5 movies?" Well, there are 5 movies out there, pretty much. And some of them you don't want to watch, but you can find them.
Well, and that's the thing. I was doing TikTok for a while and then it got weird with its algorithm and I was getting like single digit views on things. So I switched over to Reels recently. But every Friday I do a post of these are all the movies that are releasing this weekend.
And
There's a lot.
you can have more than 5.
Yeah. And
They're
every
fun.
week it's like 12, 15, whether it's in a theater wide, whether it's in a theater limited, whether it's on a streaming service or somewhere on VOD like Amazon or Vudu. There's so many films out there to enjoy. And that's the thing. Like, I see hundreds of movies every year, and people are like, there's that many movies that came out. I'm like, yeah. And there was hundreds more that I didn't see because that's just how many movies come out. And there's somebody out there that's gonna love that movie. And that's something special. And I know when you see a great film in a theater and you're walking out and you're like, oh crap, I wasn't in that movie. Like this is real life. There's my car. And you just get transported into that experience of something special. But
It's it's magical. That's all
it's
I can say.
magical.
It's like going to Oz. You
Hmm.
know, you followed that road, and I've been going down that road to movie theaters and
Hmm.
a long time. And when you think, oh gosh, there's no good movies coming out, I haven't seen anything really great lately, they're going to hit you with something. Something's going
Hmm.
to come out that you're going to go, oh my gosh, that was so great.
Hmm. And sometimes you never have heard of this movie before we watch it. That happens to me a lot. Because I try to go in blind a lot of the times to movies. Like, obviously, I'm gonna know what like Inside Out 2 is about because like it's everywhere and I saw the first one. But sometimes you just pop in a movie like the most random movie of 2024, Hundreds of Beavers, silly Looney Tunes live action basically, and it was such a delight. And I'm just glad that people are finding movies like that and the little ones that could or the big ones that transport you to somewhere. But Jackie, oh, go ahead.
I remember I had heard nothing about this film. This was a while back, but going to see Memento, I knew nothing about it. It was just like a blank canvas, and sitting there, and the deeper I got into it, the more brilliant it became.
Hmm.
And I've loved when I'm able to see a movie cold. I get so much hype and advertising that it's hard to do. But to
Yeah.
be able to walk in and not know where you're going is really, a shock and a pleasure.
I remember watching that for the first time in a film class in high school and never heard hearing of it before, and then just being like, "What did I just watch?" and just being blown away. And then obviously Christopher Nolan has blown up since Memento, and it's one of the biggest filmmakers in the world. But sometimes it's just like those special moments of just being really surprised by a film. Now, Jackie, that was my last question for you. But how I always like to wrap up the show is to have my guests ask me a question. What would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer?
How did you get into this? I mean, what was the step? You love movies, yes,
Yeah,
but put yourself on the screen and give your opinions. What
it,
what's the storyline behind it? That fascinates me.
it's funny because it really comes down to my wife, and we had dated for almost 3 years through the end of college and grad school, and then we broke up. And we broke up for 3 years and got back together, and now we've been married for 2 years. But back in January of 2016, I was like, I had just been in a almost 3 year relationship. I was in a place where I was very sad. And I'm like, I feel like I need to find something for me right now. And I love movies. I'm like, made a Facebook page, The Wasteland Reviewer, and I was typing out reviews on Facebook on this Facebook page. And I was doing that from January all the way until like August of 2016, writing reviews. I think the first one I did was The Big Short. It was that and The Revenant were two films that I had
Oh,
written on back at one of the most harrowing and depressing movies you'll ever watch. The Revenant. And then come August, I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'd be better at just like talking about the movies. And I decided to record myself. And it's funny because if you watch my first video on my YouTube channel, I had no lighting. It was at night. It was on a crappy webcam. It was terrible. And it was a Sausage Party, that animated
oh
movie,
gosh.
which I cannot believe is getting a series sequel on
Yes.
Amazon this
Yes.
summer, which is the wildest thing. What an anniversary for me. Um, I guess I'll have to review it on my channel. And then it was just something that I felt like, well, I'm really enjoying this. It took years for me to like I'm up to almost 1,800 subscribers. I was
Wait,
stuck under 100 for years. And it
130.
was just yep. And it's just me doing my thing. And this, when it really comes down to it, like I started this show because I wanted to talk to people during COVID. And I'm like,
Yes.
I want to talk movies with people. And now I'm over 200 episodes in and I haven't missed a week in 4 years. And it's like that kind of special thing where sometimes it just takes a feeling or an experience and just push you. And I've been running with it since. And I don't regret it. There's certainly been times where I almost gave up doing it, but I'm pretty happy with the balance that I've found with like my marriage, my work, and doing this. So it's special and it's my thing. So I enjoy it. But yeah, so
Well,
that was how it started. I wanted to do something for me. And
and people, will write me, call me, come up to me or whatever and say, I want to do what you do.
mhm,
How do I? And I said, you're living in the greatest time possible because you can make a Facebook channel. You can make a YouTube channel. I
yeah,
came along at the time, I had to go in big newspapers, hey, I'm a movie critic. Would you run these movie reviews? And I
yeah,
remember the ones that got shut, right and left. But you stick with it if you love it. And one thing leads to another. And if you love movies, it's the greatest life possible.
Absolutely, and you're very right. It's the same thing when filmmakers talk about like you are in the best time ever to become a filmmaker. You can make a film on your phone, and it
Yes.
looks better than a lot of the movies that were made years ago just from like quality of technology. Obviously, there's the argument between film and digital, but like that idea that like you have a camera in your pocket and you can make a film, do it. And you know, it's one of those kinds of things where it's like if you want to talk about movies and you're comfortable throwing your opinions out into the void, into the universe, and sometimes you're not going to get the nicest comments from people, which certainly happens sometimes, but like I do it for me. I do it for my enjoyment. I do it because I love movies.
I'm very fortunate. People are very kind in making comments with me. But I remember I've been a Rotten Tomatoes critic for quite some time now. And Rotten
Mhm.
Tomatoes used to publish all the comments. I mean, if you wrote a review and somebody commented, they would publish them. And they got so nasty and so vicious that Rotten Tomatoes said, no, we're not going to do that
Not
anymore.
anymore.
Not anymore. And because it was just, I mean, anybody can take a cheap shot at somebody, and a lot of people seem to enjoy doing that.
Yep.
So,
It certainly can be a wasteland out there. So
good
there you
plug, good plug.
go. I was proud of that one. But Jackie, thank you so much for coming on and chatting movies with me. This has
This
been a
was
pleasure.
nothing but fun. Thank you, Shane, for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
And go check out all of Jackie's reviews and everything. Go check out his Instagram, go check out his channel. But most importantly, thank you all out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.